Welcome into episode 14 of JD's Empire Sports Talk. Of course, JD here with my Jets specialist once again, Ryan Downey, with the new setup here. We sound beautiful. These headphones helping out. We got the setup with the all the mic going on his side. He got the same thing. We had a little bit of a technical issue before we started. We couldn't get the mic to clip in, but what are you liking this new equipment or what? We got an audio board here.
Sounds good.
It sounds professional. Let me tell you that. I feel like we're in a nice studio right now, even though we're as our audio board almost fell down. As what you call, I feel like we're in a studio right now where we're just nice at home, just relaxing. But like we said, Jeff's episode 14, a lot of thing coming around after we said last week we won't do a Jets episode. Then they find their new head coach, Aaron Glenn, who was the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, who lost in the playoffs last week. So that's why the Jets were able to jump on that. And Darren Mougey, I wanted to make sure I got his name right beforehand. I know I'm smiling right now, but I'm not too happy about the move they made, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So Darren Mougey will be the GM. He's a very young guy, which we had his resume coming up soon. Younger guy. He would be younger than the starting quarterback of the Jets from last year if they were to bring him back. We could talk about that of the comments and everything that happened from the introductory press conference. But first, we could read Aaron Glenn's resume and then we could talk about him a little bit. So Aaron Glenn was a former Jet as a player. He was drafted in the first round back in the 90s. He was a very good player, cornerback. He was a tough player, and he's also a tough coach. Then he came back to the Jets as a scout. So full circle for Coach Glenn, who was a player, scout, and now head coach of his former team. So he was a scout for the Jets for a couple of years. Then he went to Cleveland to start his coaching career. He was a secondary coach, and he went with the Saints with Sean Payton. He was a secondary coach as well, so he was a defensive backs kind of secondary guy. 'Cause that's what he was. Then he went. He was with the Saints for a little while, and then he got picked up with Dan Campbell's staff. Became a DC for them for the last 4 years. So he has a resume. Obviously, he's been around the game for a long time, over 30 years now, as a player, scout, and coach. So he is qualified, but he has never coached a game as a head coach, obviously before. So once he steps on that field in September as the Jets head coach, it would be his first time doing that. So that would be very curious to see. But anything you want to give on Glenn, and then I'll give my opinion on the entire situation. I know we disagree a little bit.
I don't have like a full opinion on him because I've been telling you, you can't judge a guy that hasn't coached in a game yet because you don't know like what he goes to like, in certain times of the game. So
Hmm.
I keep saying that you can't judge the guy yet.
Hmm.
But as much as you didn't want a defensive first time coach like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had, I think you can't judge him fully yet until he actually gets into the game coaching.
Listen, I totally understand that. I just didn't want, like you said, a defensive minded coach once again because I know even before I was born, our last seven head coaches, six of them have been on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it's something that they should have tried to shy away from because it's not like it's worked. They haven't won a championship. They haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. And in the last 14 years, they've had three defensive coaches out of the four coaches they've had. So I think that it's something that philosophy that I don't know why you want to keep going down that well again if it's not going to work. So I don't want people to think that I have a personal issue with Aaron Glenn. It's not that. It's just that he's a defensive minded guy, and that's not the thing I think they needed, as well as not being a head coach before, hasn't coached a game. I know he's the guy that he will motivate the guys a lot. I am sure of that. He has that type of personality. That doesn't always mean it's going to translate into wins. He's got to be able to sit there and manage the game. I know he said, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He said today that he will not be calling plays, which is a good thing. I think that's a lot of pressure that a first-time head coach shouldn't even have on them. But he has to go out and get the right people for that, right?
Yeah, you have to get an experienced defensive coordinator, not a guy that's coming in that's going to be his
Cold
first time,
turkey never did it before.
just first time like him coaching. So you have to get an experienced guy that knows very well how to coach the defensive side of the ball. And the same thing goes for offense. I know you didn't bring that up, but you definitely need somebody that's called plays before.
Yeah, like I know they're interested in what is it, Caley or something like that from the Rams. I know you're high on him. Another guy never called a play yet. I know he's with the Rams, so it's McVay's show, and that's not something that he's going to give up because Why would he? He's won a Super Bowl. He's gotten there. He makes the playoffs every year, which rightfully so. He should be calling the plays. But if Aaron Glenn's interested in him so much, Nick Caley, he hasn't called a play yet. Like I know you may like the guy and think that he has a bright future, but I feel like in this situation, this is not a rebuild. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a rebuild. I think it's a retool, if you want to call it that, a reload. I don't know what you're loading from before, but I think it's something like that. I think it's not a rebuild, so you don't have time to wait for a guy to learn how to call those certain plays in those certain spots. You got to. That's why I kept harping on the fact that they got to go out there and get a head coach that's done it before. Unfortunately, all right, you want to move on. I can't dwell on it. They didn't get that guy. Now, like you said, those coordinators, they got to be guys that have done it before. I know Steve Wilkes has been linked as like the favorite for DC. I would like that. I know he wasn't a successful head coach, but that doesn't matter. He doesn't have to do that here. He can call defense, which he's very good at. I mean, the year he's with the 49ers, he did very well. They got to
Sure.
the
He
Super
was
Bowl.
top 10 in interceptions, sacks, points allowed.
Yeah.
He was top. They were top three defense that year, and he was a big reason why they got to the Super Bowl.
Right, and you're right. And with that, that was the best after Salo left and came to the Jets. That was their best run. I know they've had a bunch of DC since then. That was their best run as a unit. So I mean, that could be a guy that I would be very interested in. I know. Finally, I mean, I don't hate the guy, but the special teams coordinator, I guess we got to bring him up. He went to San Fran earlier today, so they have a clean slate of guys they want to bring in. And I know Glenn has a lot of connections, but he said that he doesn't want to go and get coaches based off of his connections. He wants to get the guy that's most qualified for the job. So if he's holding up to all these promises like he's mentioning, I wouldn't have a problem with that. If you have guys that you trust to call plays on either side of the ball and sit back and be like, okay, I believe in you guys, then you roll with that. But he should not be calling plays. I know we said that he didn't, but he shouldn't be doing that. And he really, really, really has to go out there and find the right people, or else this is just going to go down the same road of 2, 3, 4 years as a coach, didn't have any success, and you're going to move on. So I think that what we heard today, uh, we'll talk about it a little more, like I said, but what we heard from today was good. But everyone can win the press conference, so we know that. But for now, let's move on to Darren Mougey, the new GM of the Jets. I want to give my opinion on him after you talk about him, but we can go through his resume first. It's pretty. It's not extensive, but he's definitely qualified for the job. Very young as well, only 39 years old, so he has a bright future. If he can have success here, he could be with the Jets for 20, 30 years if that's the case because he's so young. But he played college ball at San Diego State. He was a quarterback, and a wide receiver as well. He was on the Cardinals practice squad. I think he said for about 2 days until they got rid of him. But they did that. He did that in his career up until 2012. Then he was very young, obviously, so he became a scouting intern in his 20s with the Denver Broncos. It worked his way up all the way from scouting intern to assistant GM, which he was for the last 2, 3 years with the Broncos before getting this job with the Jets. I can give him credit for this. If he's be able to, he was able to stay in that organization through different coaches, different ownership, because the Broncos have had three different owners since he was there. So he definitely has the ability to have some kind of say in things. But I just want to get your take on it first because I don't know if he's gonna have as much say as maybe people think he does, or he does himself.
Well, the way the press conference went today,
Mhm,
Woody Johnson said it's going to be the head coach and the GM making the decisions together,
mhm.
and with Aaron Rodgers too. That's big for next year and
Yes.
years to come. And I think I like that he went up the ranks. He went from a scout, he went from assistants at every different level, and he kept going up.
Yeah.
And then so he'll know what he needs to look for to hire those right people.
Right, and I agree with you on that. He did do the work. He wasn't handed anything. He worked from the bottom up. Both of these guys, they worked from scouting interns up until what they've gotten to now. So these aren't guys that are going to be or that are used to things that are handed to them. They're used to working for it, which is a good thing to know. But I don't think this guy will have much say in anything in terms of like important decisions. I know Woody Johnson can say, yeah, these guys are going to work together on it. I think it's the Aaron Glenn show. I just think the way you hire a head coach first, that's all the telltale sign to me. I think if you're hiring that guy first, then that means that that guy has more power in the organization structure than the GM does. Usually not the case. Usually it's either equal or the GM has more. But I think that Glenn will have more say. And I don't know. I kind of based off the the way they were talking is like Glenn kind of feels like he's like the big brother to them. So I know that doesn't mean that he's gonna have more say, but kind of had that vibe to it. Feels
Yeah,
like Glenn is gonna kind of put out the idea, lay out the ideas, and then Mougey will kind of be like, "Oh, I agree with you." If they don't agree with each other, that's an issue from the start. So
yeah,
they never officially like worked together. They do know each other, so that's a good thing. But they have never worked together, so that could be something that they need to adjust on. But so I wrote here how it came together. So I know we this is like this is our what fourth episode together doing this fourth
yeah.
or
I think so.
something like that. It's our fourth episode. I know in the first episode that we started with this, they were starting or the interview process, and let me tell you, they interviewed a lot of guys. We cracked jokes about it. Arthur Smith to Bobby Booby Slowick, whatever you want to call him, who was fired by the Texans the other day. So that's definitely a good interview to have. That makes the Jets look good, right? Um, 15 head coaches were in or candidates were interviewed. 15 GM candidates were interviewed. So I want to ask. I know they had Mike T in there from the 33rd team, Mike Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman doing the interviews, who were experienced front office guys, along with Woody, Christopher Johnson, the Jaime guy they always talk about, who I still don't know who he is. Supposedly the team president, but I don't think he's ever been on camera before. I just want to ask. So, do you think they went through this process the correct way, or do you think they kind of should have not had that many interviews take place, or maybe do more? I don't know. There's people saying they should have did more. There's people saying they should have did less. Maybe it was the right number. What do you think?
I think they could have, but not do more or less, get more value out of like the interviews that you did. Like you're interviewing guys that coached in college that don't have winning records. You're interviewing former head coaches that did not have good records and they weren't like good coaches. I think you could have instead of interviewing those guys, you could have went like for one guy that has that all what those three guys have.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can agree with you on that as well. I know I said it a couple of weeks ago. I said quality over quantity is always something you should be looking for. Just because you have interviewed 15 guys does not mean you're going to win like the head coaching carousel of that offseason. Because you see a team like who the Jaguars, Raiders, they interviewed what 3, 4 guys and they knew what they wanted. That's usually the case. Teams kind of know ahead of time what they want, but I feel that the Jets they kind of used it as like a oh these fans can't complain. We went through every single person possible. Well, us as Jet fans, we're not the normal fan. I don't think. I think we know more football than probably I know. I don't know every fan base, but I think we know most more football than mostly all the fan bases out there, and we're tired of the losing. That's the thing. I've said this to a few different people now, and I know we're in the same boat. After this tenure, Salah, Douglas, if Rodgers is back, I don't know. We'll get into that. But if he's back, if he's not, that was like a gut wrenching one. Like just because we really thought that they would come out on the winning side. Wasn't the case. I kind of feel this is like the really last straw. I mean, I at this point I'm over it. I'm over all the different things they're going to talk about. Just like Glenn was saying today, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Go out there and win. That's all I care about. You're gonna go out there and say we're this, the players got to feel this way. Just go out there and win. I think you can agree with me on that. We're kind of over it was him with Salah was all gas don't break. This guy saying put your seatbelt on. I don't know. Get ready for the ride. Whatever it is. Stop with the slogans. Stop with everything. No chains. None of the fancy stuff. Just go out there and win games. Right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think from we took guys from winning organizations last time. Joe Douglas, who he was supposed to be this offensive line guru, and he till this day he still hasn't figured out the offensive line for the New York Jets,
And we'll never
and
will.
will never will because he doesn't have the job. And then you took this, and then we won the hiring process last time getting Robert Saleh. He was the hot name.
Oh, he was. Yeah.
He was the guy,
That's
and it just didn't work out the way everyone wanted it to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I feel I know a lot of fans are happy that they got Glenn because he played here and all that good stuff. But I feel last coaching cycle we want all agreed We wanted Salah. And he was the guy. They got him. He that's who they went out there and went and got him. But I feel in this situation that there's a lot of fans saying, "Yeah, we're happy we got him." I think there's another majority of the fans that are just, "Oh, all right, there's another guy that's going to be here for a little while and he'll be gone. We got the next guy." I think it's also it's hard. It's unfair to criticize this guy right away because obviously he hasn't done anything
Hmm.
yet. But I just think it's someone like me. I'm tired of it. I know you're trying to give him a chance right
Yeah.
away. He has to prove it to me. He's got to go in free agency, got to go in the draft, make some roster moves right now. Like Michael Clemens should not belong on this team. That should be the first guy you call in your office and say you're gone. Like that's when you put the nuts on the table. We want to say that, whatever you want to call them, you got to put them on the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to come out there and be like, okay, you're gone. Xavier Gibson, you should never be returning another kick or a punt for this football team. You want to say you're that much of a tough guy? I want to see it. You got to go out there in free agency. You got to get those type of players. Bring some guys from Detroit, right? Go out there and get your type of guy. Teach the guys that are in this locker room right now. I know there's a few guys in this locker room that have that same mentality as him. I can name Jermaine Johnson, definitely has that type of personality. Quincy Williams definitely has this personality. Garrett Wilson on the offensive side of the ball definitely has it. John Simpson, a lesser known player, but he's on the offensive line, a leader. He definitely has the personality. So there's guys on this team that will have that personality with him. But you have to go out there and show it to me now. I want to see you go out there, like I said, free agency, draft, cuts, whatever the case may be. In the preseason, if someone's dogging it, put them on the bench. You're not doing it. You're not going to do it the job the right way. You're going on the bench. I know he could say all those things that he's going to do that, but you got to go out there. I want to see it. So I think that that's the thing with this whole situation. I feel like I'm repeating myself now, but that's what you got to do. You got to go out there. You got to show it to the fans now. I know he was on the Jets when they stunk. He was on the teams when they were good, so he can understand what New York and how it feels when teams are good and all that stuff. And listen, if he gets his team to the playoffs next year, he's a hero already.
He's gonna be the best coach the Jets have ever had. Get
Yeah,
to the playoffs in your first year, every fan's gonna love him after not making it for 14 years in a row.
exactly. Because I know Rex Ryan made it his first year, but that playoff drought wasn't much. This is 14 years of no playoffs. That's a long time.
This is in and out of coaching changes, roster changes, front office changes. The amount of changes we've gone through in 14 years, and then if we finally hit on this guy to get to the playoffs in year one, even year two, Jet fans are gonna love him.
Yeah, listen, I keep saying this to everyone. Everyone's telling me, oh, they may not make it this year. Why not? Commanders went out there and made the playoffs this year. That roster stunk going into the offseason before their draft and free agency. Stunk. They were probably the worst roster in the NFL last year. And look, they made it to the NFC Championship game. So there's no reason why this Jets team, who I think is in a much better place than what the Redskins were or Commanders were last year, there's no reason why they can't go out there and do it. There's no excuse. I know quarterback is a very huge question mark. Oh, let's get to that now. I know it's a big question mark. We talk about it. We're on repeat. We've been talking about it since halfway through the season when we knew this Jets team wasn't making the playoffs. We knew since we started talking about it on this show that the quarterback position is a question. We all said depending on. Honestly, I think we can. Let's start. So we all thought Rodgers was definitely gone, like as the season was ending. Then Woody Johnson comes out and says it's going to be up to the coach and the GM. He's still saying it today. He said it today.
Yeah.
He still said it. So I think it's something that he's really being truthful to. I still don't believe the word the guy says because he's a liar. But that's besides the point. So if it truly is up to the head coach and GM, first let's see. Do you think that they want him back, Rodgers back? Do you think Rodgers wants to come back? And do you think they may just say, "Yeah, we're talking to him, blah blah blah," or it's just a smoke screen, and they really want to go and get someone else, and they don't want people to know the plan? So A, B, or C, or all the above, whatever. Go ahead.
I'll start with the last one. I think they definitely will talk to him because how can he's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
It's a respect thing,
You can't not talk to him
right?
with that because he's still under contract. You got to remember that
Hmm.
because you see what's going on first, and then you get rid of him if you don't want him. And then I think Rodgers wants to come back because when he really wanted to win with the New York Jets,
He did. Yeah.
he really wanted to come here too. Not many guys say that. Rogers said it. Glenn said it today. So that's two guys that really wanted to come to the Jets,
Mhm.
and I think they will give him like a chance to come back. It's gonna be up to Rodgers, I think.
Okay, I see it. I personally don't. It's not nothing against him. I just don't think that for what's best for this team in the future is to have him back. But yeah, if you want to win this year, I mean, honestly, who's available? It's better than a 41, 40, going to be 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. There's no one really out there. And the one guy you make an argument for will never step foot in the Jets uniform again, and that's Sam Darnold.
No,
And that's
yeah.
probably the best available quarterback of the offseason. He's not coming back. Justin Fields is not better than that. Russell Wilson, hell no.
Tyrod's not.
Tyrod's on the
You don't know
roster,
what Jordan
no.
Travis is gonna be with the hurt knee.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge question mark that you can't afford to throw a question mark at the quarterback position. Listen, at least with Rodgers, you know what you're gonna get, and I feel Glenn will put him in his place if he feels that he needs to. I know he mentioned it today in the one of his he had like a billion question Q&A sessions, but the one he definitely mentioned was that it's not only about him. And he
Mm-hmm.
also he brought him up today before anyone even
Mm-hmm.
did. He said, "I know we're going to talk about it, so I want to get it out there. It's not all about him. Yes, we're going to talk to him. I know they said they've been texting back and forth, so that he definitely is interested. But the team's not going to be about. It's not going to be hit what he wants. It's going to be to help all those guys out there.
I don't think it could be about him now. He's 40 years old. It can't be about you.
Yeah,
Your number one receiver is 24,
he's
23
young.
years
Garrett
old.
Wilson. Yeah, he's
Your running back is 20 something years old. Four of your offensive linemen are young 20s. It has to be about the team. It's not about a 41-year-old quarterback anymore.
yeah. I mean, and this group of players they have right now, all of them are going into like for the most part like the studs, fourth and fifth years. This is make or break. You can't afford to punt on another year, and these guys are going to be gone. They're not going to want to stay, and if they do, then your cap like listen. It's always great to have your homegrown guys back and on the team, but next year this team will maybe won't have as much depth as possible as they could this year because of contracts. Garrett Wilson needs to get paid. Sauce Gardner needs to get paid. Brees Hall needs to get paid. Jermaine Johnson needs to get paid. Will McDonald soon. There's other guys I can't even think of the top of my head that will need to get paid soon. So they need a this year. This has to be a playoff year. And I know a lot of people are saying a rebuild. No, it's not a rebuild. They have to win. And if they really want to consider this year as a winning, have a shot at it, it's gotta be having Rodgers on his team. I know I don't feel that way. I think he should be gone. But I mean, if you want to win and have the best shot at it, he's unfortunately he's got to be the guy that's back.
Mm-hmm.
But then to the introductory press conference from today? I know we mentioned it a few times already. Any takeaways that you have from any of the what he said, what Glenn said, what Mougey said? Any of them? You got anything
I
about
like
it?
I like what Glenn said about 1998 when they were in the playoffs and he was on the team that they were up 10-0 going to halftime and then they blew the lead, lost. He hasn't forgot that and he wants revenge on that and I think that's something good. He's playing for what he lost as a player.
Yeah, I mean it's something I can. I almost audio board almost fell there, but I can. That's the one thing I do like before he's even shown me anything as a coach, head coach, obviously. I like how he first rejected the Patriots interview, so it shows that he already doesn't like them, and that's a good thing because we're going to be facing them twice a
Hmm.
year. So it shows that. It also number two, like you just said, he remembers things when he's a player and he wants to get his get back. He made it known today. You're a New York Jet. You better be proud of it, or else we're not going to keep you here. So I know that like he said, the Jets they have a good tradition. We don't. The tradition's not good. That's just coach talk that he has to put out there. But he is right about the other things. You're on this team. You got to represent the name, and that's the New York Jets. And you let this group. He should be telling this group, let's be the change, and let's be the team that people remember 20 years from now. Be like, oh, this is when the Jets turned this
Hmm.
franchise. Like, why not? Why not? Why not let it be us, right? I know, like Rodgers felt that way too. Like you're on the Jets, change your attitude. It's like one of those teams. Like I don't know, we've been on teams before. We're like, oh, we're on this team. Like we kind of we're used to the losing.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Like we know, like oh, we get to this point this year in the playoffs, or we have a shot at the playoffs. We're gonna find a way to lose and not make it. It happens. But you got to have that mentality where you'd be like, oh, well, this isn't the same thing. It's one thing that you could say it, but you have to believe it. And I really do. I like that out of Glenn. I know I really he's never gonna lack the motivation, and he's never gonna let a guy get away with anything, and he's never gonna tell he's gonna tell it like it is. So that's a good thing. I know you like that a
Hmm.
lot. So maybe he'll grow on me. I mean, for my sake as a Jeff fan, I hope they don't lose. I know I had a rage video saying I hope they go 0-17, but hopefully that's not the case. Or else we're going to be sitting here next year at this time again, probably looking for another coach.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. He got a 5 year deal. I mean, those are things that we just got to sit back and like, okay, we'll see what happens. But I do feel a little better than I did last week. Still not sold, obviously. Any final thoughts you got? We'll see. I was gonna say about another Jets episode, or maybe if there's any news that comes out with Rodgers or any of the quarterback plans. So we won't have set dates for Jets episodes, but next week, I don't know. I'll put the offer to you out now if you want to make a Super Bowl prediction show with me. If you want to do that, it seems like a yes from you. We'll do
Yeah.
that. Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl 59 rematch of Super Bowl 57. So that'll be a really fun game. Unfortunately, not a lot of people wanted to see the Chiefs have a chance at a three-peat, but of course they will. And I know a lot of people are not fans of Nick Sirianni and the Eagles either. So might not have been the matchup everyone's looking for. But any final thoughts before we sign off here?
I think after today, a lot of more fans are going to believe in Glenn and this new era of the Jets.
All right, man. We'll see what happens. Thanks for coming on once again. Episode 14 concluding now. I just want everyone to go out there, follow the Instagram, follow the TikTok. We're getting more followers. The views, we got to get more views though out there, especially on YouTube. Not a lot of people are watching the full episode. I mean, you never know what you're gonna miss on the full episodes with us two talking here. We tell you like it is. That's it. As Jeff fans and fans of other sports, but later in the week I'll be back for Knicks, Rangers, St. John's, or maybe Rangers, St. John's, whatever the case may be. Knicks got a few big games coming up this week, so hopefully they can keep their winning ways up and keep us happy over here. The Mets behind us, they're starting soon, so we'll definitely have a lot of episodes for them. That should be very exciting. But JD, Ryan Downey, RD right here, he's signing off. I'm JD, and have a good night, everybody.